David here. I want to talk about what to do when we worry about what others think of us. It could be what they think about what we're wearing, our outfit, or that we're out of shape, or that we aren't good looking enough, or maybe where we're from, or our education, or what we're working with. Maybe we have some future plans or some idea, but we don't dare to tell people about it. It could be basically anything that we feel when we differ from others. Or it could just be a feeling as soon as we walk into a room or as we're about to start talking that people will judge us for it. When I delved into behavioral science and psychology, I learned that everyone worries what others think. So I first thought that worrying what others think is only something you do when you have low self-esteem or low self-confidence. It turns out everyone worries, but those who succeed in life, they still worry, but they don't pay attention to that worry. They decide to act anyway. And the reason everyone worries what others think is because of how we're evolved. So throughout the evolution of our ancestors, it turns out that being approved by the group is one of the most important things you need as a human being, except for food and shelter. Because when you're part of a group, you're safe from predators and dangerous other tribes. So we always want approval of others, and that's why we're so worried about what the others think. And that's good to know because it shows us that it's not weird to worry about others' things. It's perfectly human. But here's the problem. Our worry is greatly exaggerated by a lot. So for example, when behavioral scientists made a study, I think this was in the 80s, they asked certain students in school to wear t-shirts with, at that time, a super famous person. Would either be Jerry Seinfeld or Martin Luther King or some other, I don't remember who it was. Everyone knew who these people were. But then they asked the students with the shirts, how many of your classmates do you think noticed the shirt you were wearing during the day? How many do you think would notice and could identify the person? And the students responded on average 45%. So in other words, they thought that 45% of their peers would know or would have paid attention to the t-shirt they were having. Well, as it turns out, they also asked all the other students in the class, what t-shirt did your friend, Fred or Lisa, wear? What was the motif of that t-shirt? And how many do you think nailed it? Well, it turns out 6%. So they thought 45% would notice. In reality, 6% noticed. This is proof that our fear of what others might think is hugely exaggerated. And it makes sense because throughout history, it's been super, super important. Nowadays, in our society today, we want to be able to deal with that fear because what it does is that it constrains us, right? It stops us from what we want to do, and it stops us from feeling confident and at ease with who we are. One time I was at the gym and I was just resting between two sets, and suddenly, out of nowhere, a guy comes up to me and he looks me in the eye and tells me, my hands are so sweaty. So I'm like, all right. And later in the dressing room, I'm thinking, like, why did he ask me that? And then I realized, why did he tell me that? And then I realized, when I was resting between two sets, I was just resting my eyes on some movement in the background. It turns out it was that guy. And what was going on was that he was doing bicep curls, and the weights had been too heavy for him, or they got slippery because his hands were sweaty, so he had to change to lighter weights. And he thought that I judged him for having too light weights, so he felt that he needed to explain to himself. So when he walked away from me, he was probably like, phew, I really saved that situation there. That's a real-life example of how we constantly over-worry about what others think of us. When I started to get to know wildly successful people who are great at whatever they did, and also very socially savvy, very self-confident people, I noticed that they have a very different way of viewing themselves. And what they use, what socially savvy people use, is what in psychology is called ownership. So ownership is when we own whatever state we're currently in. So ownership is saying, this is who I am at this point in time, and I'm 100% confident in that. A classic example of ownership is in a school setting where the nerdy, nervous person has a weird hat, and of course that person gets picked on and bullied by the other kids because of the weird hat. But then if the most confident person, the cool person in school, would have the same hat, it would be a trend. But it's the very same hat. The difference is in ownership. So the confident person owns the hat in the way that the confident person is 100% at ease with having the hat. When the opposite of ownership is to be distant from whatever you do. You're not aligned with whatever you do, whatever you have, but you try to push yourself away from it. Pushing something away is the opposite of owning something. So the nervous people would be like, oh, this hat, oh, I don't know, it just fell on my head, I have no idea, I'm going to throw it out. While the confident person is just so at ease with whatever they do. Where I grew up in Sweden, Sweden is, as you know, a very non-religious country, but there was this one guy in my class who was a devout Christian, and I think no one else in my class was a devout Christian, so he stood out. But he used ownership. He was very confident, very socially savvy, still is amazing, confident, socially savvy, very likable person. While others could be bullied for having other thoughts, other ideas, he never was. He was always completely accepted for this. And this is why. He took ownership in his beliefs. So for example, if someone asked him about his religion, maybe even in a bit probing way, so I heard that you're a Christian, then he would just, in a very confident way, talk about that. Yeah, that's true. So I go to this church, I do this and this. Another thing he did different was that he never tried to push his agenda. A common trait when people are nervous is that they try to push their ideas onto others because that makes them feel more confident if they can get others to believe what they believe in. So a less confident person would try to push whatever they're doing. But he didn't. He was 100% confident in his beliefs, and he was also 100% fine with others having other thoughts. So if you combine being 100% confident in whatever you do and also 100% confident in others being different, that's when you have ownership. That's the ultimate level, or that's the deepest level of confidence. We want to own who we are, and we do that by accepting who we are and being okay with others seeing who we are. It's both simple and hard. But what I can tell you is that if you start changing your mindset from distancing yourself to owning, to taking whatever values you are close to your heart, it will over the coming weeks and months be much easier to do things you want to do without worrying about what others might think. Now, I want to know below, leave your comment, what did you think about this video and what do you want my next video to be about? Let me know in the comments below. I will read every comment and maybe I make a new video out of your comment. If you like this video, hit like, hit subscribe, and I see you in the next one.